0.5. Can't fucking deal with 0.5. Like, call it what you want. It's the first time you're writing it.
Yeah.
So I guess the key takeaway is like I just want to draw a fucking line under this bullshit. Right.
Let me just drag your platform over. There you go. Right.
Activate your energy.
Welcome to the Activated Authors Podcast, a show where we distill the core principles of what it takes to become a happy, healthy, and productive author, no matter what stage of the journey you're at. I'm your host, Daniel Willcocks. I'm an international best-selling author, as well as an author coach, speaker, and creative entrepreneur. But most importantly, I'm a lifelong student of all things productivity, psychology, and human behavior. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Without further ado, let's dive in. What is up, Activators, and welcome back to another episode of the Activated Authors Podcast with myself, Daniel Willcocks, and the ever immortal
Highlander Samantha Frost.
Highlander, I like it.
Well,
we are in Halloween season. I feel like creatures and Halloween and all that kind of stuff. You should be immortal, if anything.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
That's what I've got. I mean, you have been Doft, Lady, Queen of Red, and all the other stuff as we mentioned. I believe we mentioned it in last week's episode. I don't have it.
It was the week before.
Yeah, so there's got to be an element of immortality there. But how are you, Sam? What's crack-a-lacking?
Now, this is the point where I go inside my brain and I have a little conversation with myself that goes, do they want the truth? Or do they want the, yeah, everything's fine. How are you? Because honestly, I don't know how I am. I feel like I'm possibly on the verge of a mental breakdown. Or it's just complete overwhelm. There's so much going on in my brain at the minute. It's going too fast for me to be able to kind of like catch a thread of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I seem to be kind of bouncing from manic to just exhausted. It's not helped that I have not slept in a full night since Saturday. Sunday, I think. I keep just getting woken up at ridiculous times by stupid things. So like last night my son came in at like, I'd gone to bed early. I was like, I'm gonna have an early night. So I was in bed and like lights out, and I was like gone by like 10:30 at the very latest. I think it was probably a bit earlier. And then I get woken up at 11:30 by my son freaking out because he realizes he hasn't done some homework. So then like I have to pull myself downstairs at 11:30 to help him do something on Canva about a chemical reaction. The night before that, there was 2 foxes fucking outside my house.
Oh no.
And I made the mistake of sleeping with my fucking window open.
I'll do it.
Because I don't know what it is in this house, but like kind of spring and autumn time, it can like, I would say around 4 o'clock, it gets ridiculously hot. I think it's because like I'm back on back houses. So like I've got a house behind me and a house next to me. And I think like if they've got their heating on, like it warms my bricks up as well. And then it just gets really fucking hot. And I went to go to bed and I was like, I'm not going to be able to sleep. Like it's too hot. So I opened the window to let some air in, and then I fell asleep. And then I got woken up by just, I mean, we all know what it sounds like, right?
I don't think everyone does. I think you should do an impression just to.
It sounds like Derek. Derek, I said no. Get off. Get off, Derek.
Derek the Fox. That's what we're going with. Derek the Fox.
Yeah.
Nice. I like it.
It sounds like that, but like in fox language, which is more like.
There it is. But I always find as well, like, and I'm pretty sure this will resonate somewhat with you, is always when I'm like, I desperately need sleep tonight.
Yeah.
It's always when I'm like, Because my little boy, he's quite a good sleeper at this point. Like he sleeps relatively straight on through. It's only every now and then that there's like a moment or a nightmare or something, like whatever. Um, but it's always the nights when
Yep.
I'm exhausted and I'm just like, I need a full night's sleep.
Or you're
Like
ill.
I'm just crumbling. Like
Mhm.
I can't handle it. That at 2 o'clock in the morning you just get ah, and it's like obviously I don't what's the word? I don't blame my son for it. I don't like there's no
You're a better person than me then.
well, I think he's still at that point where I can't blame him yet. But like he, yeah, it's not like a real negative thing, but it is enough for me just to be like, oh, like I've noted that it's this night
Hmm.
because those nights for me probably come like 5 or 6 times a year, and it's always on those nights that's like that or like an alarm that I don't remember setting just goes off, or like for
Yep.
whatever reason, like you say, the window's open, it's suddenly freezing, or I don't know, it's always something.
Foxes are getting their spiky penises out.
Yeah. Wow.
Stupid foxes. So yeah, I like to to summarize. I'm I am I'm
Fine.
yeah, I'm fine. How are you?
No, I
And
think
yourself?
the thing is like the whole point of this podcast, like I really hope that like people get that fine doesn't really pass for this podcast. Like it's not what this is
No.
about.
What's fine stand for? It's from the remake of the Italian Job. Fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional.
Yeah, there we go.
When someone says I'm fine, and they're like, "What does fine stand for?" And like, fucked up, insecure, neurotic, emotional. Like, cool. So, how are you doing?
Or I like it in Community where it's Troy and Abed, and I can't remember which one of them doesn't seem to be okay. It's like, "Hey, how are you? I'm fine. Fine or Fyn? Fyn. Oh, thank God.
Yeah, yeah,
Love it. Love it.
yeah.
Mm.
So, how are you?
Um,
Fyne or Fine?
Foine.
Oh fuck!
Fine.
No, that's called overcompensating.
It is. It is.
Bad,
No,
isn't it?
I am. Well, we were speaking about this before we started recording. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, either in or on the cusp of burnout.
Mm-hmm.
I have like a mouthful of ulcers. I have my mind in 1,000 different places. And just all the things. And like, I think the difficult part is like all the things that I'm working on are very, very exciting. It's just a few of them have converged and overlapped at certain times. And not only that, but like I for the last month have been on a particular medication that a doctor has been trying to see if it would help my finger pain that I've been having for about 2 years now. And that is a medication that is mostly given to sort of anxiety and epilepsy sufferers. So it's more of a neural medication, I guess. I cannot think of the way to say that. I think that's probably symptomatic of what it was. Suffice to say, it hasn't worked, and I'm now come off that medication. But in coming off that medication, there's now also a transitionary period. So it has hit me like a fucking steam train.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh god, I feel that. Head
yeah,
meds are like
yeah. So
annoying.
tr I tried to pull through with work yesterday, and then just called it off because it was one of those where I was just like, I cannot.
Mm-hmm.
And I've come to recognize the benefits of taking that time off and just being like, I need to step away for 24, 48 hours, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I might potentially have another one of those tomorrow just because of how I'm feeling. But I mean, broadly, like it has been a positive week. Like things are moving forward. I finished the first draft of my novella, which it's been in progress now, that one for probably about a year and a half, just on and off with different things coming up. And so yeah, I've commissioned a cover that's all underway, and that's really exciting to start looking at how I could potentially go about publishing that and making that happen, because
Yeah.
I have, as a few people who are familiar with my stuff know, over the last few years, like written fast, published fast, whether it's ghostwriting or my own works. And with this one, it's definitely a case of like I'm not feeling like the rush. I'm working on the edits. I'm kind of beginning to make a marketing plan, and how I'm going to promote it. But broadly speaking, like I'm not giving it a publication date until I feel like I'm ready, which is
Yeah.
quite a nice position to be in. And then on top of that, I had a conversation last week with someone, and I'm now on the fringes of diving into a potential collaboration that would be very, very exciting.
Yes.
Yeah. So kind of, because I hate teasing things, but for ages I've been talking about stepping into sort of darker fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
sort of horror elements with more of the fantasy scope. And I may have found the way to do that with someone who a very, very, I'd say it.
Master of their craft.
Yeah. So that's all exciting. So yeah, it's a lot. And as I say, I've recognized that I need a bit more breathing space, just probably tomorrow, Saturday, just to step back and recount everything. But ultimately, all good, fine, all fine. What's your key takeaway from this week?
My key takeaway from this week is kind of twofold, really. So while my brain has been fucking all over the place, the two thoughts that keep coming back to me are, now is not the time for me to take my foot off the pedal. As much as I want to, kind of. And like I'm going to be completely like honest and transparent about it, because like I don't have a day job. I am on like disability because I am considered to have severe disabilities because of my mental illness and my mental health. So in some ways it's easier for me to get stuff done because I have a lot more time than other people, like nuts and bolts, if you look at it that way. Obviously I know a lot of kind of authors and creatives have full-time kind of day gigs, you know, because they need to eat and such. But at the same time, that time often gets taken up by me having chronic mental illness. So when I say like now's not the time for me to take my foot off the pedal, I'm not putting my health at risk. I don't mean like constant, never stopping, never anything like that. But I've been trying to impose a lot of boundaries, time boundaries on like when I work and all that kind of stuff. And I've just got so much on like the conveyor belt that I want to get done. And a lot of stuff around just general, almost like housekeeping stuff, so like social media and my blogs and all that kind of stuff that have basically ground to a halt because I'm just focusing on the one thing. But focusing on the one thing is I don't know, there's something going on in my brain with it. I still haven't figured it out, but what I know is that I need to do more. I'm not doing enough at the minute. And it's just trying to figure that out in a way that is healthy. So I just think that like I'm entering a period of like I'm gonna have to grind my ass off, which I'm not thrilled about. But there we go.
You are very similar to me in that regard, in like just the focus and the attention side of stuff, because I do find that with this novella I've just finished, the only reason I was able to finish that is because that consumed me for the last week and a half, 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Before that point, like it started to consume me, and then I had to stop because I had other things to do and it was distracting my attention. I am very similar in that mind of, you know, having that big thing that just becomes like you just zero in, you just lens, nothing else exists, all things fall away. And it is tricky to manage. I'm still trying to find like systems and things for myself that make that work. And obviously it's beneficial having, you know, teams or VAs and stuff, but if you can't afford those and if that's not an option, then like it's just bashing through, which is not so fun. But I empathize with you. I'm there.
Yeah. So there's that, like that's kind of trying to, it feels weird to call it a key takeaway because I'm still formulating it, but like I know what it is. I know the feel of it in my brain. I just don't quite know how to.
Yeah.
And the other thing is my brain just keeps asking me, who is she? Trying to get from who I am now to who I want to be. And I don't mean like huge changes, you know, I'm not suddenly going to turn into an arsehole. Although maybe remain an arsehole depending on if you've wronged me. But just kind of like just stepping out of where I am for a second and being like, who do I want to be? Like when I grow up, who do I want to be? Like, and kind of trying to make some kind of realignment shifts.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all big, heavy stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess the key takeaway is
Perfect. That was perfectly put.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I don't know if I have no solid evidence for this. I have no solid backing. It's just literally like thoughts and theories that I've seen from my own journey. But I do feel like part of pursuing this kind of career very like seriously and becoming the person who quotes you're meant to be in that regard, and finding that alignment, I do feel like comes with a lot of like shedding layers of your skin. For people that have listened to me on like through the story studio to Great Writer Share to Next Level Authors to here, um, every few months is a realignment. Every few months is a realization. Every few months is a sudden aha moment that breaks the path that you're on and forces you to kind of just veer off slightly and go somewhere else. And drawing that tree would be fascinating. As long as it doesn't circle back on itself, you're good. But like as long as it's moving forward. But yeah, I do wonder if that's a part of just this kind of process that people have to experience, obviously like in a variety of different ways. But I myself, as you know, have kind of had those moments every few months. There's something else where I'm like, this is the real me. No, this is the real me. No, now I found it. This is it, and it pushes forward until it starts to like attract everything else that it needs.
And I saw a dead crow today.
It's not nice. I'll
be honest, right there on the top of its little mouth. Yeah, I'm kind of tired.
Don't have to follow that. I haven't seen anything dead today.
Well, what's your takeaway?
Probably McDonald's. Have we done that joke yet?
As I said it.
I don't know. I don't know what my takeaway is. I've got one here, but I'm not. I think I don't think it's the one that I've written down. I think my key takeaway from this week has been actually influenced by Rob, who joined the Activated Authors community officially. And I know we've chatted about it a few times. But the fact that although my job is writing, I can still enjoy writing. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy what I do, but like there are certain points where it comes to it and it's like with my own projects, I'm just like, oh, but if I do this, I'm taking energy away from like other things that I have to do for work. And so there's almost like this conservatism of holding myself back in order to reserve those energy fuels for where it applies to the business, even though it all contributes to the business. But just having like people like Rob coming into like the evening sprints and they've worked a full hard day and then they're like, I'm ready to relax and just write. And I'm like, oh yeah, writing can be fun and relaxing. So the day that I kind of took off yesterday, I didn't work on the heavy stuff. I was like, I went in the morning, I went to a cafe that I'd not been to for a while. That's one of like the ones where I basically wrote my first few books, and sat down with no intention whatever, and then found myself finishing the Nowhere line and just enjoying it, and just playing and just writing and taking all the expectation off and just enjoying that process. So I think that's it. Like still remembering that although obviously a lot of what I do in terms of admin is necessary, is kind of necessary evil, like the writing should not be ever, especially where I am now, because I'm not ghostwriting anymore. Like everything is optional. So
yeah, like the writing is the work, like in a good way. Like the admin isn't.
Fuck the admin.
Fuck the admin.
Right, we've got a couple of wins from the community that I picked out because I thought they were awesome that I wanted to share.
Yeah.
The first one is Sarah, who finally finished going through her manuscript and got it sent off to her editor.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's massive. So congrats, Sarah. We won't go into that full journey, but it's been a time in the works. So very, very excited for you with that one. And the second one is from Emma G, who managed to start getting writing on fiction again, because it's been very, very busy with a lot of like academic and non-fiction stuff. So returning to the flexing the old fiction muscle.
Nice. Oh, I love it.
I love it. We get such like I love seeing the wins, because it really does stretch from like I've finished a book, I've done this, to just like,
I
had a
didn't
really good
punch anyone
Thursday.
this week.
Yeah, that's often a win for,
Yeah.
for quite a few people.
Yeah.
Okay, so our question this week is actually something that I will give you full credit for, because you kind of really changed how I think about this, given a lot of like conversations that we've had.
That's the way I rant about it.
Yeah, and the question this week is, what is a first draft, really? So Sam,
Yeah.
what is a first draft to you?
Right.
Let me just drag your platform over. There you go. Right.
So a first draft is quite simply the first time you tell yourself the story.
Bam! Thanks for joining us. Massive thank you to you, the listener. All that. No, gone.
Now, the reason people get annoyed with me when I talk about this is because everyone likes to think that, you know, they like to put themselves in camps, and they either like I'm a pantser or I'm a plotter, and they like to oh, stupid, oh God, you sit there planning it all out, you fucking nerd, like, like it's so weird, but they're the same thing. Like,
Go on.
they are the same thing. So it's just a different approach to writing your first draft. If you're a planner, what you do is you sit down and you figure everything out of the story intricately, and you put it all, you know, into place. Obviously, like we've said before, there's a spectrum, so some people will literally like plan it to the nth degree, but that plan is you telling yourself the story. By the time you've finished it, you've gotten to the end of your story. That's your first draft. If you're a pantser, your first draft is exactly the same thing. You're just figuring out the story. Like, it might look a bit different. You might like go at it a different way, because we're all humans and everything. But like, I just want to draw a fucking line under this bullshit. Like, there is no such thing as pantsers. There is no such thing as plotters. You're all just writing a first draft, but you want to put a little label on yourselves so that you can like feel like better than the other group, because we're humans and that's what we do. There.
Yeah.
I said it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Like, it's something that we're taught, well, that I teach people again and again and again, is that the best thing you can do is reach the end. And I think there's a lot of things with writing that, particularly when we start out, seem to make sense in our head. But the further into this writing journey that I get, the more confusing it becomes. So as a new writer, I think in my head I've got like a little analogy of a few, like last year, 2 years ago, I was looking into buying a husky. And one of the key things, again, I'm not going into the full, like, if you disagree with this, like, this is just the stuff I've heard and read. I'm not saying this is a thing that you do, like, yeah. But a lot of people were talking about crate training. So the idea being that when you bring your husky puppy home, because they're very alpha driven dogs, you don't give them control of your entire domain. You start them in a small place and you slowly introduce them to the space so they can understand where their boundaries are. I feel like with writing, that's a very similar process. Like, you come out of the gate and people will tell you what you need, what to do, and you follow these steps. You look for the people and you go, okay, that's how they do it, so that's how I need to do it. And you kind of like toddle off to write that first book, or to, you know, have your first attempt at writing a book. And the further along that process you get, the more you realize this spectrum that you're talking about, the fact that, you know, you're not just a plotter, you're not just a pantser. Like, it's never that black and white. It's just not.
No.
Like, I've said it myself thousands of times. I'll probably sit somewhere around a 3 or a 4 if like it's a 1 to 10 scale and number 1 is pantsing. So I need to know enough of a few core mechanics and a theme and a feel so I can then write the story. As opposed to people who are on the other end of the spectrum that, like you say, might need just chapters and chapters of like blocks and outlines and characters and settings and descriptions and senses and colors and all that kind of stuff. Like, whatever it is you feel you need. That aside, the first draft is you telling yourself that story. So what we're taught is your first draft is the moment you start attempting to fully write out your story. So take that as your starting point. Once upon a time, that's your starting point.
Mm-hmm.
How we categorize is to the left of that. Plotters are people that spend a lot of time before once upon a time,
Mm-hmm.
and pantsers are those that spend a tiny bit of time before
Mm-hmm.
once upon a
And
time.
usually a lot of time after.
Yeah. What we're saying with this is that, and this is again just our opinions, but I wholeheartedly am like coming around to this idea, is that line, that once upon a time line, that isn't your first draft.
No.
For a pantser, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a conversation with an author friend once about I stumbled across this idea of a skeleton draft, and I can't remember, it's not mine, I can't remember where I got it from. Or some people call it a 0.5 draft. And
Yep.
someone was like, I'm really struggling to write this first draft. And I was like, okay,
0.5 draft,
we'll try this idea of a skeleton draft or a 0.5 draft.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of this was that you write that first draft with no expectation, with no worry. You know it's going to be messy. If there's a fight scene, you can literally put insert fight scene here. But it's you giving a chance to, rather than tell that story in 80,000 words, you're telling yourself in like 10, 20, 30, whatever it is.
It sounds a lot like a first draft to me.
Well, this is the point. So what it seemed to be, because I've had a few people come around to this, like trying this, and they were just like, this has revolutionized how I write my first draft. Like just in that changing of the name. What it really kind of told to me was that I tell people again and again, that first draft is you telling yourself the story free of expectation, door closed, no one's going to read it. But because it's a first draft and it feels official, there's an expectation that people have to try and make it as best that they can, so that when they get to their second draft, hand it off to an editor, it's like near perfect and polished. And giving yourself a 0.5 draft to go, fuck it, let's just throw paint on the canvas and see what happens. People just get through that so much quicker. But that, you're right, that is your first draft. Because your first draft is your total telling of that story.
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, in the sense of like, because I know people very much like to hold on to like labels because it helps us understand who we are. It's just part of being human. We put ourselves and other people's in like little boxes, makes it neat, and our brains can like handle it, right or wrong. That's kind of what we do. So when it comes to like pantsing and plotting, for sure that is a thing in the sense of how you go about writing your first draft. What I'm saying is they don't exist in the sense of how people traditionally talk about them, because where you're like a 3 towards the pantsing, I'm probably about a 7. At least I am at the minute. Like, God knows, like project to project it's going to change. Like, I don't plan out poems in that way. I don't draft them out like that. I just write them. And then I edit from there. But like with Air to the Universe, for example, I spent a long time skeleton drafting 0.5. Can't fucking deal with 0.5. Like, call it what you want. It's the first time you're writing it. It blows. I just remember, because I think it's one of those things that because I'm still relatively new to the space, like when I first came in and I saw all of this stuff, I was like, huh. Like, because I didn't like grow up in the culture of this writing and all that kind of stuff, like I just walked in and was like, that's bullshit. And it makes sense. But like I don't know whether it be because of that, like it allowed me to see something different, or maybe people will think, well, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, obviously pantsing, obviously plotting, obviously this method and this method, and like at the end of the day, whatever you need to do, babe, to get to the end, go for it. Like, I'm not here to tell you that like plotting doesn't exist, or that like just starting writing until you get to the end doesn't exist. Like, you know, Stephen King's not right for himself that way.
It's not bad.
But I think the danger comes when like we box ourselves into these little labels. I am a plotter. That is what I do. I haven't started writing it yet. The plot needs to be perfect. And then I'm going to start on like 0.5. And then once I've done that, I'll get to 0.75. Just write the fucking story. Like, you've already done it. You just don't realize. Like, in you planning it out, you know what's going to happen. There you go. You've done your first draft. done. And it's just this thing of like, when you write the end for the first time on, say, like the full 80k or whatever, that doesn't mean you have to hand it to an editor. It's your thing. Like, go through it as many times or as little times as you want. Like, it makes no difference. It's closed door until you open the door.
Yeah, I think the thing that people struggle with the most is that mental block of what comes after that written draft. And it's the reason I wrote Self-Publishing Blueprint. It's the reason that, I put that information out there, is because there's such a gap between having written your story and knowing you've written your story to book. And I think what a lot of people conflate is planning as writing, and then that first draft as the book. So rather than feel like they're writing the story, they feel like they're writing the book. And the book comes, and it comes with iterations and editing. Like we tell people this all the time. Like, it feels like, and I'm not in any way, for people that haven't written a book yet, for people haven't like gotten to the end of it yet, I'm in no way taking it away. Like, writing a book is a massive mountain, it's a huge hurdle.
Oh yeah.
What you do realize is once you've written that book, that's the beginning. So getting to the end is monumental. And I've said this countless times again and again, like, one of the biggest shifts, biggest advancements in my writing career was getting to the end of my first novel. The novel that will never be published, never was published, just is now in the burn pile.
But
having reached that
yet, and I will read.
Having kind of come a long way since then, like, the more authors I speak to, the more that comes back to being a truth, like proving that you can get over that and you can like finish a story. But I think that in that first draft, for me, my priority is story. And if you look at the different layers of what a book is, at its top, you have the story itself. That's why people come back. It's the thing people remember. It's, when you've finished reading the book and then 3 years later, you're like, you don't remember each individual word, how many chapters were. You're like, this is a story. This is how it made me feel. This is what happened. Story at the very top. Underneath that, you have sort of your more structural elements. You've got like your chapters, your paragraphs, the actual sort of like layout of the book and things, how that looks. And then right at its bottom, you've got your grammar, your word choice, and you go down sort of the nitty gritty of that. And what a lot of people begin with is writing from the bottom and going like, how do I make these words perfect? And that's not what the first draft is for. The first draft is to tell yourself the story so that you can make that story then sing the best that it can. Because I don't know about you, like how you wrote your first book, but like, I didn't know the full story until I'd written it down. And even then, once I had the full story, I could then, from a very bird's eye view, go, that worked, that didn't.
Yeah.
Moving. And you can tweak the little bits to make sure that the full top story structure is there. So you can then work on everything from the top down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I was like sitting down with kind of the idea, and I started like, I'm not enjoying this, but for ease of people to understand, when I started planning.
I mean, you were planning your book.
Yes, I was planning it. Like, it was a case of, okay, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And I had all of the characters. I knew kind of traits and all that kind of stuff. I'd figured out like backstory and all the thing, actor. So like that kind of stuff kind of was second nature. I understood, all that kind of thing. And did it all, got to the end, when I started Nano, the first Nano, I had a folder next to me with each chapter in it that told me like whose viewpoint it was from, what was the point of this scene, like where did it start, what's the objective, all of that kind of thing. And then like a page or two like written of like this happens and this happens and this happens. So I had my draft, I had my story, and I'm on draft 6 now, I think. I haven't looked at it.
Sounds about right.
Poems. And there's still things that I'm like, okay, like this doesn't work, and so I need to insert an entire like thing here, because it's.
We will add an addendum that your audience has changed for who this book was to who it is.
That is true, but also it is my first project of this length, and it's gargantuous. Like, it's huge to write a book, and to think that you could like start and write all the way through to the end and it'd be perfect is insane. Like, referencing King again. Yeah, he famously sits down and just writes. He doesn't then just press publish. He does go back and sort that shit out. Like, yeah, his drafts are probably a lot cleaner than yours are right now, but that's because he's written 523 books.
At least. Like, at the very least.
And, you know, or should I say he's published that many? He's probably written like thousands. The guy writes every single day. He is a master. Whether you like him or not, he is a master of his craft. Like, I just realized that could sound like I was linking back to earlier. It's not King. Dan's not working with King.
Mate, even if I was on
kept
an
it
NBA,
real
I
close
would
to the
world. King Cox. There we go.
But like, you know, like him, hate him, like horror, hate horror, whatever. The guy like writes every single fucking day. So his drafts are going to be cleaner than yours. Almost definitely. Like, it's like, so the novella that you just finished, Dan sent me a snippet of it a while ago now, and like it was the it was the first page, and I read it out loud. I was sat in my living room, my sister was with me, and I read it out loud, and she literally went, "Oh, fuck off," because that was Dan's first draft, because Dan drafts very clean, because Dan has written 70 books. Like, you do 70 of anything and it's going to be cleaner than the first time you do it. But I think the danger is that we start off and, you know, we're all fresh and excited and and so we expect the product to match our enthusiasm, and it's not gonna. Like, it's not gonna be great, and that's okay. It's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like, the craft of writing is in creating that book, that story, and you need the first, like, you need the sketch before you can paint it. You need the blueprint before you can build the house. You need the dolphin sprocket before you can drive the car.
Man, that's, you know, you're absolutely right. Like, that first draft, one thing that I know that I always come back to try and polish up in second, third, fourth, however many drafts, is like my dialogue. I've worked on it a lot, but it's never quite where I want it to be on that first draft, just because as I'm writing, I'm basically just getting the sentiments roughly of what I want the characters to say before I then start adding like nuances of speech and things.
Yeah, voices can easily merge, can't they? When you
yes. But I mean, broad strokes, kind of to bring us full circle, is your first draft really can be what you want it to be. If, you know, that first draft idea of what you've been taught from school works for you, then by all means, let that work for you, but know that you can be flexible and there are other ways to do it. I think the golden rule that I tell everyone who comes into activated authors, anyone who does like the camps, so just basically anything that I teach in books or upcoming courses, is
smooth.
Yeah, it's like that first draft, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, and this really puts some people off and grates them, is like, give yourself permission to write unadulterated, absolute blasphemous shit.
Yeah.
Like, getting that first draft done, it's not about how beautifully you can write at all. It's about finding the story. Like, sure, as you say, time goes on and you improve, that they start to sort of come together. But just finishing that first draft means finishing that first draft and telling yourself that story. Yeah. And it makes me laugh, because over the years, like, I've been around a lot of people that write fast, just smash out drafts, that kind of things. And the amount of people who will shoot back and be like, well, you're writing it so fast, it can't be good. And it's like, you know, it's good because I write fast. Like, I write fast, I practice a lot, and I've written a lot of words, as you say. So like, that's why some of it comes out quite clean. But whether you need to do a skeleton draft, whether you need to do a half draft, whether you accept that your massive plot, chapter summaries, all that kind of stuff is your first draft. Like, for me, what I've come to hold true is that first draft is the telling of the story. Yeah. And everything else just falls after that.
Yeah. And just to very quickly add on to what you said, and also because I just thought of one more metaphor and I wanted to say it.
Yes, please.
You cannot decorate the cake if you have not made the fucking cake. The cake is your draft, the icing It's the editing, the little floral things and stuff for the like. Stop trying to decorate empty space and just write it.
You
However,
can't hang the
you.
canvas to keep Ethel dry if you haven't put up the structure of the gazebo.
Exactly. Think about Ethel.
Poor Ethel.
She's 90. She's had pneumonia 3 times. Really going to make her freeze.
Wow, I got dark real quick.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head goes. I mean,
Why
Ethel,
not?
she's not 3, is she? Ethel.
No. But yeah, she's had her time. So
she's lived a good life.
So yes, our question: what is a first draft, really? And again, like this is our thinking on this. You might have different thoughts, but broad strokes: take away the pressure, tell yourself a goddamn story, and get that book written.
And don't at me, please, because like you won't change my mind, and I'm already on the verge of a mental breakdown. I can't be doing with it.
At her, all of the ats. In promo for us this week, we have one. Well, by the time this airs, we'll have 2 days left until the 50k Writers Camp welcome meet. So if you're looking to get involved in this year's 50k writing camp, then make sure you're all signed up and you're ready to go, because we'll be giving all the information away with how to what's going on for that month on Wednesday, the 26th of October. Find out all the information over at activatedauthors.com/50 and then a K at the end.
And that when registration closes, the 26th.
Sure. Yes.
Cool.
That's when registration closes. So,
so it's open at the minute.
It's open at the minute. It will close. So get involved.
Yeah.
Any last words from yourself, Sam?
No, I'm trying to like amp up the camp for you. You're just talking over me. So like you got 2 days. Get your ass in gear and come on down to downtown.
Not sure I like that.
Anyhow, I said, his drafts are a lot cleaner than mine.
Thank you. A massive thank you to you, the listeners, for tuning in. We appreciate you and the time you choose to spend with us each and every week. And as always, if you're looking to level up your writing and activate your author career, head on over to activatedauthors.com to find out all about our community, our resources, and everything else that we've got going on. One more time from myself and Sam, we will see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Activate your energy.